Today we're going to have a quick look at the techniques for collecting rhododendron seed. And most rhododendrons that flowered away in the spring have seed which won't actually be ripe until November. And when we look at this particular rhododendron here, which is a rhododendron loderi form, we can see that the seed heads are just starting to go brown. They've been green for quite a number of months, and since the flowers fell, these seeds have been swelling away and the seeds have been growing inside these pods. Now, if we were to let nature take its course, and these particularly large seed heads here are clearly going to be full of seed, if nature was to take its course, then in about 3 weeks' time these seed heads will go completely brown, and they would then start to split, and the rhododendron seed, which is pinhead tiny and easily blown away in the wind, once they've started to split, the seed will disseminate everywhere and we'll have missed the ability to collect it properly. So the game really is to collect the seed when it's nearly ripe and bring it indoors and ripen it somewhere dry and warmish, but not exactly heated, and let the seeds pop out for themselves in somewhere in an envelope or on a piece of paper where you can actually collect them without them being blown away, without them getting sodden in the damp and wet outside in the garden, and make a proper job of it. Now, when we look at more closely at these seed heads, you can see some here which haven't really formed properly, and where there's no swelling at the end, and when I touch them they drop off. There'll be no seeds there. When we look closely, there's another one that's just dropped off because there's nothing there, and another one. But when we try and break off the seed heads that look as though they've swollen a great deal more, they're firmly attached still and they won't break off very easily. So with a pair of secateurs, we carefully extract the whole seed head. And that's what we'll take in and dry. And that looks fairly straightforward, doesn't it? There's perhaps 1 or 2 seed heads there that are no good and not got any seeds in. Perhaps actually 2 or 3. But the rest are looking chubby and lush, and there'll be plenty of seeds in them. Now, on this particular plant, we've made it look quite easy, but let's go and look at 1 or 2 other rhododendrons and see what can happen if you're too late going out to collect your seed, or if the seed themselves have started to drop off before you've got there. So here we're looking at another rhododendron. This is a species called Swaliense, and here you can see what's happened, that we've only got, out of the cluster of seed heads, we've only got one that's still hanging in there. The others have dropped off, possibly because they had no seeds, or possibly because we're a bit late in the game. And you can clearly see that there's going to be a lot of seeds in this seed head, and that it's just starting to go brown, so it's clearly ripe and time for us to pick it off and take that indoors to dry it off. And if you look around more on the tree itself, you'll see that we probably are a bit late in the day. It's only here and there that there are single seed pods left, and the probability is that they've dropped off before we got here and are now lying on the ground and have probably been rotted away or whatever. But we've got 2 seed heads there. That's going to produce us literally thousands and thousands of seeds when they're dried off. And I suppose the moral of the story is that when you've got a rhododendron that's seeding nicely, you need to keep an eye on it once a week, really, through October and November, and not miss out on the picking opportunity. And here we've got another rhododendron. Yes, this rhododendron is sickly, and yes, it's going to die, and like many plants that know they're going to die, they procreate and produce huge numbers of seeds. But as you can see here, these seed heads have been ripe and mature for some time. You can see that there's actually no seeds left in the pod. The pod has split, the seeds have been scattered everywhere, and I'm afraid that we've missed them. Had we wanted to try and ensure the survival of this plant, we should have collected the seeds probably 6 or 8 weeks earlier, when they were still green and ripe, like the ones we've been looking at. If you look on to the sister plant, that's still looking extremely well. There are far less seed heads, but again you can see that they've opened and shed their seeds. So we're too late, we've missed it. So I go back to my theme, which says you've got to keep your eye on these plants. You can't assume they're all going to become ripe at the same time, and unless you get it right, you'll miss out, as we have done with this particular plant. There are so many rhododendron species, 650 approximately. They're all going to have ripe seed at slightly different times. You can't collect all of them, but the things to collect are the rarest and the ones that you want to have a go at propagating. We've already done a little video showing you how to sow the seeds. The final part of this video will be to show you how to get the seeds themselves out of the pods which we've picked, which are still green and need to be dried off so the seed can drop out of them. 2 or 3 months ago, you may remember, we were collecting rhododendron seeds, and we were snipping off little twigs which had seed pods, seed heads on them, and this was about October, November time. And then we brought these seed heads into somewhere dry but not heated, just so they could dry off on their own rather than being sodden wet outside. And gradually, over the course of the winter, the seed pods have expanded and split, and as you can see, huge numbers of seeds very readily fall out onto the paper I've got here. So you don't really have to do anything very much to break the seed heads apart. The seed are here in profusion. I picked this piece only a day or two ago, and here you can see that the seed heads have split naturally outside and all the seed is blown away. It's best to get a nice clear piece of paper so you can collect the seed up, and don't sneeze while you're doing it, because these seeds are absolutely tiny, and the slightest puff of wind and they'll vanish. But you've now got seed in a situation where you can gather it up, put it in a little plastic bag or into a matchbox, and then come March you can get ready to sow it in a mixture of sand and compost, probably with a bit of moss put in, and keep it dark and shady until these little seedlings germinate, which they will probably in about 6 weeks. Simple and straightforward, but you've got to remember to collect the seed in time, dry it off properly, make sure it doesn't get blown away, and there's your crop of a new batch of Rhododendron Madeni, probably 8 to 10 years from the seed to a flowering plant, but that's the time scale I'm afraid rhododendron seed generally take.